What is up, guys? So we're in here today. Welcome to part 2 of the review of this trade paperback, Clay number 4, Dark Knight volume 4, of course, Clay. So the previous part we actually done the whole Clay story, right? So we finished up the whole Clay story, which is right here in the middle of the book, and I give it a solid 7. You know, there were some flaws, but in general that was a good read. The art was beautiful, it was grim, it was dark. I loved it for what it was, but there were a few cracks. So definitely I can recommend that if you can get this story alone. Now let's move on to the second part, because as you can see, even here you can clearly tell that those are two colors right there on the pages. So we're gonna move on to the second color of the pages, and the first one is voiceless. This panel never happens. This is a cover art, remember that. So the voiceless is a really interesting story. It has no words. The voices itself, this is a short story, it's a single issue story that has 0 words in it, and I'm not joking. So this is a story just told panel by panel. You can clearly tell the panels are really readable. There's no words on those panels. So we've got a story of a family that is working in a sweatshop. They are getting kicked out of it and they're getting moved to Gotham. Of course, as they are, being transferred to Gotham, they're kidnapped, and the tragedy strikes. So everything that happens here is just to showcase the tragedy of those people, and they clearly are immigrants, right? They want a better life, and it just shows a really, really tragic life of them. And honestly, it just also shows how grim and dark Gotham can be. So they are kidnapped, and they are of course kidnapped. They're beaten down, right here. They're just being slammed, beaten down by the people, and they're gonna work in a little elf workshop. So they do have to work in the Holiday Cheer Incorporated, as you can see, right? So you got kids that are working, they are like coughing, they are barely standing, and they see the full mall of people. It's a really cool and unique way of telling the stories. Of course, we've got that. The girl is still coughing, this little girl, so her grandma tries to escape, but as she goes, she stomps on one of the toys, which alerts the guard, and gets slashed, gets hacked, gets slashed. And of course we also learn on that page that this is the company that actually Oswald Cobblepot, Penguin, owns. So she goes down, and we know Batman is on them. Batman's gonna come there, and we've got this beautiful, honestly, for the story that has no words, it really can hit you hard, and it's a really powerful story. So kudos to the artist. So we've got the woman actually landing just flat right there, and we've got Batman. He knows, he is angry, he is the vengeance, and this is the panel that goes like, okay, you know what? There is some going on. I'm in. So you can see straight the girl right here. She barely can stand. She's like almost dead. Goes and she prays, and this is so good. Like, that's why I'm covering. She prays for the Jesus Christ. She prays for the God, but the God is not coming. There's a different God in Gotham. That is Batman. And just look at that transition. Wings to wings. This is one of the best transitions in this story, or in this book in general. I loved it. So we see the Batman just coming for her and taking her to the hospital. But now he knows that there is something wrong happening. So of course he goes back, beats up the bad guys. Even though he helps some of the kids, the bad guys actually catch him. We see Batman going, but they just launch so many nets. 90% of them catches Batman, and the Batman is caught. He's right now in the Cobblepot's lair. But you know what they say about Batman. You don't want to, you don't want to get him. Especially you don't want to get him in this mood. And this kind of art, this art, especially there's this one really interesting panel next page, because of course we've got Batman that escapes. Beautiful art here. But this, his smile over here, doesn't remind you of someone? Right over here. Because for me, that reminded me, and I was like, that reminds me of Batman Who Laughs. Literally, that was my first thought, which is really, really cool. So of course, you know, now the bad guys are caught, and there's still one more location that Batman has to check, and this is a little elf workshop. They found it, and they're going in. Of course, yeah, this is just, you know, the exact story. Like, okay, Batman goes in, breaks people, you know, people's bones, saves the kid, saves people, and well, that is it. That is the whole story. The mother and daughter reunite in the hospital. A really good story. And on top of that, we've got, of course, Batman going after the Cobblepot. And as he goes for the Cobblepot, we know that we got new citizens in Gotham, thanks to the Wayne family. And of course, you know, the little kid. That is like, this is super cute. You know, it's like, hey, she's here. There. She's like, oh, that's me. That's your Batman. And that's why she has Batman, not an angel. She has a Batman on the Christmas tree. A really unique way to tell the story, I'm not gonna lie. So now I'm gonna just rate that story itself, because again, this is a self-contained story. It's a unique way. The art is good, but the story is quite simple, and you kind of know where this is going. It's 5 out of 10, right? I like, you know, those panels, you know, those transitions. They were really good. You can kind of tell, you know, to yourself, like, what, you know, what the characters are talking about, you know, what they are telling to themselves. But all in all, it's just another story that is like, okay, there are some bad guys, beat them up, that's it. You help the kid. Definitely, you know, the kid story is heartwarming, you know, from the sweatshops to becoming a citizen. That whole trip is great. So definitely this story can resemble with the immigrants. It can resemble who like went through that. Doesn't really resemble with me, but I can say like, yeah, sure, it definitely can be powerful, and the fact that it's told without words and it still has a bit of an impact, I think it's great. That's why it gets 5 out of 10, because like, if it wouldn't have an impact or anything, you know, that would be just like a 2. It was just like, eh. But again, it's not a bad story. It's 5 out of 10. I think, you know, the same as Mad Hatter. Kind of a bland, you know, like, you know, bland story with everything you know was gonna happen, right? So 5 out of 10. Now we go to the last story of this trade paperback. My goodness, 3 stories in this trade paperback. They really should have actually figured out, like, way too much stories. I mean, it's, you know, always have to read the Batman story, but like, it's just crammed in here. So of course we got the brand new Man-Bat. So we've got sightings, you know, there are people, you know, they're homeless people, almost dead, without blood in their veins. That's a work of Man-Bat. So of course Batman goes straight to the original Man-Bat, right, to the professor, and well, it was like, that's you. He was like, no, it's not me, I promise, you know, run the DNA test, just wait until it's gonna come and you will see it's not me, it's not me. Batman looks at him into his eyes and goes like, okay, it's better not to be you. So and then, you know, we see the thoughts of Batman, like, okay, I saw fear in his eyes, it's definitely not him, but who is he? And of course, you know, we go straight into who the person is, which is, of course, Mr. Lang, Abraham Langstorm. So the father of the Professor Langstorm, right, of the original Man-Bat. He knew actually Wayne family. He was their competitor, but he was just shutting down companies that were not his, that were just, you know, like he was just buying companies, getting what's best from them, shutting the rest down, just firing people all over the place. So he is really cruel, but we learned that, you know, he always liked Bruce, not his son that much. So we know that he was on the quest of gathering all the Man-Bat's DNA, all the Man-Bat's samples, and well, to create the best Man-Bat. Of course, he turns himself into the Man-Bat. We know this is something that Batman never thought. Again, I'm kind of oversimplifying the story because it could have been a lot better. It could have been a whole big story, but it's just yet another simple one. So he becomes the Man-Bat, right? You know, Batman fights with him. The first thing that Batman wanted to stack him kind of breaks. They figured a different way. Man-Bat is defeated. There's really not much more to it. It's just a lot of, like, literally a lot of walls and walls of text covering, you know, covering the art. And the problem that I have with these walls of text is, you know, they had a single issue, and they wanted to tell a story that is definitely not for a single issue. It's a story that is for like 3, 4, even 6 issues, like a whole trade paperback of this Man-Bat, and they just, you know, had to cram it, and it feels this way. It just feels crammed, it feels rushed. It's like, okay, we got him, we found him, bam, 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 that's it. There's not much really into that, and it is kind of, you know, annoying. Of course, you know, the battle is a bit gory, you can tell. It kind of reminds me of The Art of King in Black that's coming out in terms of the color patterns, but there's not much into that. We see Armstrong just happening again, and yeah, it's just a regular end of the story. You know, we got a brand new Man-Bat. It doesn't really establish the character, it doesn't really, you know, do much. It's cramped story. If you compare it to, you know, Clayface, when he had a whole single issue of just his backstory. Here, walls and walls and walls of text. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like to read a wall of text, you know, again, Watchmen is a perfect example. You got a lot of text, you've got, you know, those stories in between, which are like literally you read book, inside the comic book, which is great, I love it. But I know this is to develop the character, right, you know, in the future there's like enough pages. But if you're trying to develop the character on like one page and go straight to the action and on the other, it just doesn't work. And that is that story. That is literally that. It's just crammed, rushed story of a brand new Man-Bat. We learned that, yeah, he was, you know, kind of like getting with Talia al Ghul. I wish we saw that. Like, hey, you know, him haggling with Talia al Ghul, right? Just all like him just doing this stuff. Huge opportunity for a really nice story of a brand new Man-Bat. You know, maybe the old Man-Bat going for the brand new one, right? Like clashing, and the Batman in the middle. So many cool things that could have happened. Unfortunately, it was just not that. And that story, again, I can't give it higher than 4. I mean, I gave 5 the previous story without words, and I think the previous story was a lot better. But I also think, you know, it's not as bad as Tom King's stories. So I think 4, maybe 3.5, you know, in terms of, yeah, I think 4 is a better grade, is not that bad for the Man-Bat story, which kind of concludes, you know, so we got 3 separate marks, you know, 3 separate scores for this book, because I mean, I don't think you can. I'm gonna try to score it as a whole thing, even though there are 3 huge, 1 big story and 2 smaller ones, right? Even, you know, here it is still divided. We got a Clayface again, solid 7, really grim. Enjoyed that, you know, few flaws, but okay, 7 is not bad on my scale. Then Story Without Words, 5, and then we got 4. So as you can kind of see, gradually the book becomes worse and worse and worse. If they would end up right here on the Clayface, and maybe with the Voiceless, and not get a Man-Bat, I just don't think they would get the full trade paperback, and so they just crammed it. They were like, hey, listen, we need like 1 more issue for that, go for it. And it feels this way, it really does feel this way. So for me, for the whole book, right, so we got 7, 5, and 4. So I think the whole book as a total, I think it's a 5. Total, you know, of all 3 scores. If you can find, because again, that was a £2 bin that I found it, right? I said pounds because we were in the UK at the time. So £2 bin. So I'm not mad, because literally, if I would pay $17 for it, I would be pissed off, because it's just, yeah, not happening. But for £2, which is like $3, maybe $4, I think that's a steal, and that's a great book for a collection. I just don't think I'm gonna be back. I'm gonna be coming back to Dark Story. Maybe if they're gonna, you know, revisit Clayface in the future again. Maybe if they're gonna do Clayface for the future state. Maybe, you know, for the other stories with Batman, you know, this year, 2021, or the other years. Sure, I'm gonna go back only for the Clayface. That is it. I really want to forget about that other half of from the Voiceless to this Man-Bat, and that is the whole thing. I can't say, you see, I want to say something, you know, good about it. I really want to, but it's just, it's one of those. And maybe, you know, maybe you can tell I'm harsh on Batman, because I think, you know, because I've read a lot of Marvel recently as well, and I'm waiting for a lot of Marvel, which really, Marvel got me excited. I thought I'm a DC guy, and Marvel got me excited. I am harsh on Batman because I know you can have a fantastic stories. Of course, you know, yeah, we're gonna go to the Joker Wars, but I'm gonna go for trade paperbacks, because again, in terms of DC, I like to have trades. Marvel, I can have single issues, I can just browse through it. But for the future state, no worries. You know, Joker is gonna come next week to me, so we're gonna talk about that. Assassin's Creed, you know, there are gonna be more and more coming, so no worries out there. But all in all, as what it is, Clayface story, really good story, good art, 7, other stories 5 and 4, total of 5. That is the score from me, from ya boy Raven, and I really hope, you know, I haven't discouraged you a lot. If you can get those single issues from Batman 22 to 25/6 of the Clayface alone, get those single issues if you can find them cheaper than the straight paperback. If not, and you really want to read a good story of a Clayface, and if you're a fan of Clayface, go for it. If you're scared that you're missing a lot, not really. And it's just, you know, one of those books that it's, you know, if you can get it super cheap, yeah, for the collection, sure, but you're just gonna, you know, throw it back and be like, yeah, okay, that's, you know, on my shelf. So that is my review of the whole book, you know, 2-part review, but I think I kind of needed to do that 2-part, because I didn't want to give you like 40-minute, 50-minute video on the whole book, you know. It's better to separate, because especially the book is separated itself. So that is the whole thing. That is my review of that. And what do you think? If you read this whole trade paperback, if you read the story, what do you think about that? Let me know in the comment section down there below. And in the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching. Goodbye. Gonna have a fantastic rest of the day. Take care. Bye. Raven loves you. Bye.